Welcome to Seniors in Action. This is Michael Scott. We're going to be talking about bowling today, but as you can see, we're going through some pictures of Seniors in Action, and now you see our disclaimer up there. So we are just about to start the main part of our presentation, so just stay with us for a minute. Thank you very much. Bye. Hey seniors, welcome to Seniors in Action. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about bowling. The last 3 or 4 videos we've talked about taxes several times, and we've talked about Social Security. And so this is a change of pace. This is more of a spur to action to try to get those of you that aren't active all the time to get out of the house and actually participate and meet some new friends and get active in some type of sport that can keep you in better shape. So bowling it is today. We're going to have 2 videos on bowling. One is an introduction to bowling, tells you some things you probably don't know about bowling. And then the second video will actually go to the bowling alley and show you some things at the bowling alley that you may not have seen today. So we're going to start out today about talking about bowling balls. And you go to the bowling alley and you may go with your family once or twice a year or maybe once every 2 years. And you pick a ball off the rack, and all these balls look similar. I mean, some have bigger thumb holes and stuff and finger holes, and some have some way more than others, but they all look pretty similar. But there's some pretty big differences in bowling balls, and so you need to be aware of the bowling ball that you're picking. The bowling balls that are in the bowling alleys are basically called house balls, and those balls are either made out of plastic or they're made out of polyurethane or some other material like that that is a fairly slick material on the outside, and it's not made to curve or grip the lanes at all, so it'll just slide on the lanes mostly or roll on the lanes, and you can curve them, but you've got to be you've got to twist them pretty good to be able to curve them very much. And so those are your plastic balls or your house balls. And to be quite honest with you, most bowlers that are league bowlers or bowl all the time or professional bowlers do not use plastic balls or polyurethane balls because they just don't carry the pins like other types of balls. So I have a ball here I'm going to show you. This ball actually cracked. I wasn't aware that it cracked, and it's been, I don't use it anymore. It's been sitting out in the garage. It's a very, very good ball, though, and but you can see the crack in it, and so it's no good anymore. But if you see the pink and black finger slots, those are called inserts, and so this ball is actually drilled as a fingertip ball, and if you're getting a ball off the rack, you don't see fingertip balls. Fingertip balls are basically drilled, custom drilled for people that own their own ball and that bowl quite a bit and want to throw more of a curve ball or a hook instead of just a straight ball. So that's what this ball is designed to do. This is a 15-pound ball. There are different weights of balls, and so you need to be aware of that. They usually will go anywhere from between 8 pounds maybe up to 16 pounds. Most men throw 15-pound balls these days. Most women throw 14-pounders, maybe a little less, and some women actually throw a 16-pound ball or a 15-pound ball. And so, but this is a professional type ball, and this ball, if you go to your local pro shop or go to bowlingball.com, will cost you probably anywhere from $180 to $250, depending on the price that you might be able to get. And that might include the drilling, and it might not include the drilling. But when you have your ball drilled, it is important, and this is something you don't get with a house ball, that it's drilled to your finger holes. And so it's also drilled to your span of your fingers, and so that's the span right there. And so that's the importance of getting a custom bowling ball. You can bowl much better with it. You can bowl much more consistent with it. So custom bowling ball is probably what you need to have if you're going to bowl quite a bit, if you're going to do league bowling or something like that. And I certainly encourage you to get involved in bowling and do do leagues. Now we're going to talk about other types of activities that'll get you involved in too, but this is just one of them. So you've got a conventional grip, which is a full finger. You're putting your fingers in all the way, as opposed to a fingertip. And I will tell you now that most league bowlers have fingertip balls. Professional bowlers have fingertip balls because they can roll the ball off their fingers and get spin off it and get curve and lift off it. So and the advantage of a curve ball or a hook is that it carries the pins much better than what a straight ball does. So if you're going to bowl, you're interested in bowling and you're going to get a bowling ball, have it drilled to a fingertip and you'll learn to throw it. Have it certainly be a reactive ball. The difference between what you get off the rack and this ball that I just showed you is the cover stock on the ball, and that's the outside of the ball. And the cover stock is made on a reactive type ball. The cover stock is made to grip the lanes a little bit more, and so it gets action off those lanes. And so if you have a dry lane, and you're probably not aware of this, but lanes have oil on them, so if you cross over the foul line, you're going to hit some oil. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But a reactive ball is made to just grip the lane a little bit more, and so when it goes down, it will curve. And it's also got a weight block on it, but most of the curve is by creating lift on the ball. The urethane balls, the plastic balls, do not grip the lane very much, and so they go straight. Very hard to curve them. I can curve them when I want to, but they're pretty hard to curve, and they're not made to be able to curve, and so they're not used by league bowlers or professional bowlers to actually bowl very much. But they are cheaper balls, and so you can buy a plastic ball for probably $50 to $100. And you may be able to buy a reactive ball for that price if you get a used ball from your pro shop or something. And that may cost you $50 or $60, and they may drill it for you. And used balls are okay as long as they haven't been used for 10 years or something like that. But a lot of people will change balls every year if they bowl a lot, and so a used ball like that would be a very good ball. Okay, so let's talk about bowling style a little bit, okay? And we have talked about straight balls versus a curve ball or a hook. And the advantage of the hook, like I say, is you get much more action from the pins, and so the pins carry much better. And again, if you're going to bowl all the time, I'd learn to throw a curve ball and not a straight ball. And I have a lot of bowlers that I bowl with that constantly will throw a straight ball, and they've done it all their life, and they don't want to change. But you don't get better until you change. And you may get worse for a while after you change, but it does help you get better if you'll make changes. And changing from a straight ball to a curved ball is certainly a necessary change. And like I say, it's going to take you a while to get used to it, and you may get worse before you get better, but you will eventually get better. All right. Now, the reason a curveball carries better is that it comes into the pocket at an angle, and the pocket is for a right-handed bowler. It's between the head pin, the 1 pin, and the 3 pin, which is sitting right next to it on the right side for a right-handed bowler. For a left-handed bowler, it's between the 1 and the 2 pin, which is sitting on the left side. And so you want to hit right in between those 2 pins. If you hit right on top of the head pin, you're probably going to get a split, and so you don't want to hit there. But a curveball enters the pocket at a different angle, and so that's one of the reasons that it carries the pins. The other reason is it's got spin on it, and it'll spin those pins around as well. So that is something you need to consider about your bowling style. And like I say, if you're going to be a bowler and bowl quite a bit, I would throw a curveball and a reactive ball to throw that curveball. Now, we talked about the lanes being oiled, and most people aren't aware that there's oil on the lanes. And one of the reasons you're cautioned not to go past that foul line is because if you do, there's oil on those lanes. And I've actually stuck on the lanes before because I had something on my shoe or there was something on the lane, and I've ran out maybe 4 or 5 feet onto the lane and got oil on the bottom of my shoes. I was very lucky I didn't slip in the oil and fall because it's very slick out there, and that's one of the reasons that you're cautioned not to go past the foul line. Another reason is if you get oil all over your shoes and you track it back on the lanes, well, then everybody else is going to get oil on their shoes and possibly be sticking on the lane, or having to clean off their shoes at least. And your shoes certainly are going to be a problem if you are going over that foul line, your bowling shoes, and so you're going to have to clean those up good before you can start bowling again. So there's a couple of reasons why you don't do that, but very interesting. When you go to the bowling alley and you look at the oil, it can be laid down in different patterns, and so they have different approved patterns that an oiler, and they do have these machines that are oilers, and they will go down the lane and come back again, and they oil those lanes, and they'll oil them to a certain point, usually called a break point, and after that break point, your ball will curve a great deal. And so, but there are different approved oil patterns, and so you can be aware of that. Usually your local bowling alley may use one pattern. It's not like a pro bowling alley that is there for professional bowlers, and it may use all 7 of the bowling patterns at one time or another. But another thing to know is that that oil will change places during the time that you're bowling. So if you're bowling 3 games, the oil may be very thick in one place when you start bowling, and it may be spread out and not as thick after by the 3rd game. So the break point also changes because that oil gets pushed down. And so if you've got 8 bowlers bowling on this lane, on one lane, for example, or 4 bowlers even bowling on one lane, that oil is going to be pushed around. And with heat, it's also going to start drying out. So as it dries out, if you're throwing a curveball, that curveball is going to curve much more on a dry lane than when it does on an oiled lane. So you need to be aware of that. And part of the difficulty of bowling is learning how to adjust to the changing oil patterns on given lanes. And one lane may be a little bit different than the other lane, but learning how to adjust, which means you may have to move right or left, you may have to move up a little bit, you may release your ball and put it down on a different place on the lane to adjust to those oil patterns. But adjusting to the oil patterns is one of the most difficult things in bowling as far as I'm concerned. And I hear, most of the people that I bowl with have problems adjusting to the oil patterns. Now, that affects you much more if you're throwing a curved ball than if you're throwing a straight ball, because the straight ball just goes right down there and goes straight most of the time, and it's you're not really influenced by adjusting oil patterns. But that, again, is not a reason to throw a straight ball if you're going to bowl, in leagues, or you're going to bowl quite a bit during the year. So let's go ahead then and talk about some other things that you should know. I started bowling very young. My mother and father put my brother and I in bowling at our local bowling alley when we were in junior high school, and so it was very good for us, learning how to release the ball and learning how to just pick up some fundamentals of bowling. But one of the things I didn't pick up back then, nobody told me that you were supposed to look at the marks or the spots on the lane instead of looking at the pins when you release the ball and when you're bowling. So when you go down on your approach and you actually release that ball, you're not supposed to be looking at the pins. You're supposed to be looking at the marks and the arrows on the bowling alley. They're there for a purpose. And, some people might look at them and they'll say, oh, they're just there to look nice. But that's not the case. Those marks and arrows are much closer than what those pins are. And so when you release your ball, you can hit those marks a lot easier than what you can a pin way down the alley. And that's why those marks are there. And so that's called spot bowling, or and you'll hear people talking about, well, I missed my mark, or I got my mark, or whatever, as opposed to pin bowling. So you want to spot bowl if you're going to be a regular bowler and bowl in leagues, and you're going to learn how to bowl. You need to learn how by starting to be a spot bowler and look at the marks and the spots and the arrows on the lanes and release your ball in that way instead of being a pin bowler. With that said, let's move on to something else that you may not know about bowling, and that is that bowling approaches differ. Now, most people, even the pros, use a four-step bowling approach. And so a right-hander will start with his right foot, a left-hander will start with the left foot. Now, you find people that do it different, and they do it very successfully sometimes, but for the most part, that's the way it's done. You also find people that will just walk up to the lane right in front of the foul line and just release the ball there. And these are people that are either older, they've got sometimes they have a handicap, sometimes they're just older, and so the approach just doesn't work for them. And I've seen people do this with very good success. The last place I was, we had an 82-year-old fellow that would release the ball that way, and he commonly bowled 200 games, and he averaged in the 170s or 180s. So he was a good bowler. He had bowled all his life, though, and so he knew how to do that. But starting out, you need to learn how to do an approach instead of releasing the ball that way. When you get to be much older, well, then you don't have. If that's the only way you can do it, well, I would not be ashamed to release it that way. So just be aware, four-step approach generally. If you're taking another approach, doing it some way, if you can correct that, especially if you're just starting out, use a four-step approach and start with the proper foot so that you're doing it right. And then at the end of your approach, you should slide, and that's where bowling shoes come in, because bowling shoes are made to slide. And when you finish your approach, you should slide possibly half a foot, maybe even a foot, as you're releasing that ball. And bowling shoes are made to do that. And bowling shoes, you can get a starter pair of bowling shoes for $30 or $40. So, or you can pay up in the hundreds for them if you want. That have and those that you buy that are more expensive have different kind of soles on the shoes, different kind of heels and stuff, and they're very nice shoes. But you can start much simpler if you want. But bowling shoes, when you go to a bowling alley, they're going to charge you anywhere from $2 to probably $3.50 even to rent the shoes for a session. And so if you go very much, you just need to buy your own pair of shoes. One, you get cleaner shoes because they're brand new and you don't have shoes that 100 other people have worn. And they're not only cleaner inside, but they're cleaner on the bottom. So you don't want shoes that are sticky, and sometimes the house shoes that you'll get, you'll stick on the lanes, and you don't want that. You want to be able to slide on the lanes, because if you stick, you may go over the foul line sometimes. You may hurt yourself sometimes, because it kind of hurts sometimes when you stick and you're in full motion and you stop yourself real quick. So that's why you have good bowling shoes, and you should keep them clean. Don't wear them outside. Don't wear them in the mud. They're for bowling only, and so keep them in a bowling bag or in your bowling locker or whatever. And so they're nice and clean, and you can bowl the same way every time. You don't want to be sticking on the lanes, and like I say, that's not a comfortable feeling, and you don't really bowl very well when you do stick on the lanes. All right, something else you might need to know about the bowling alley. And this is the difference between occasional bowlers and league bowlers. Occasional bowlers, you'll show up, you'll grab the ball off the rack, and you'll rent the shoes, and you go out and bowl, and probably throw a straight ball. And so right off the bat, you've really got 3 strikes against you, because you're wearing shoes that aren't the best shoes in the world. You've got a ball that's a plastic ball that's not intended to curve and carry pins. It's also a ball hasn't been drilled for you, and so it probably doesn't fit you right, either in the fingers or the thumb hole or in the span. And so it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for you to bowl a good game. And sometimes you get one, sometimes you don't. But And if you're just bowling occasionally, you don't bowl that well a lot of times. So one of the advantages of league bowling is that you usually acquire your own shoes, you acquire your own bowling ball, and it's drilled to fit you. And you can do that, like I say, for probably under $100. Okay, get that equipment for under $100 if you go to the pro shop and he's got used balls there that he'll sell you and he'll drill it for you, and maybe it's $50, maybe it's $60, and you buy the shoes for $40, and you're into the sport for $100. Now let's talk about the cost of bowling, league versus occasional. So if you show up at the bowling alley with your family and you want a ball, they're usually going to charge you anywhere from $3 to $5, I would say, would be customary for most bowling alleys, especially in Idaho here, in Wyoming, and in the West, but Intermountain West. Maybe more in some places, maybe less, but that's not cheap per bowling game. And when you have to rent your shoes for $2.50, $3, then actually you're paying quite a bit for that session. But you only bowl once or twice a year, so you're not spending as much on bowling as you would in a league. So let's talk about league bowling a little bit. League bowling customarily, from what I've seen, will cost you about $15 a week, all right, to bowl. And if you don't have shoes, you're going to have to rent your shoes. But if you have your shoes, and you should have your shoes if you're going to league bowl, they certainly pay for themselves. But about $15 a week. Some leagues are $12, some leagues are $15. And I haven't seen anything over $15 yet, but I'm sure it's coming with the inflation that we have. But league bowling is a commitment. I'll guarantee you that you'll be a better bowler by the time you've bowled in a league than what you will if you haven't, because you bowl every week. And that commitment extends from, maybe mid-September to mid-April, sometimes even into May. So that is a commitment. And if you miss, you've got to pay for a substitute. So you're paying that fee whether you're there or not. And so you have to remember that. It is a long-term commitment to be a league bowler. But I'll also guarantee that you'll enjoy bowling, and you'll enjoy the people that you're bowling with, and you'll meet a lot of very nice people, and you'll have a good time at it. So it's a good way to get out of the house, meet people, enjoy yourself, and have a good evening or a good afternoon or a good morning of bowling. So if you're a senior, you have the advantage of being able to bowl during the day at a lot of bowling alleys. When I started, I bowled when I was young, and then I kind of stopped for 40 years, and then I picked it up again when I was about, I guess 58 or 59 years old. And I was out in Florida when I picked it up, and I got a ball, I got shoes, and there was a bowling alley out there with 50 lanes. And I would go there about 6 in the evening, and there was nobody there. I mean, maybe one of those 50 lanes was being used, and I would be using the other one. And I thought, how do these guys stay in business? Then I decided to go there at lunch one time, and the entire bowling alley was filled with senior bowlers. And it was great, and I figured out how they were keeping the bowling alley open, because they had so many senior bowlers bowling in that bowling alley during the day. So that's one advantage of being a senior and being able to, if you're retired anyway, and being able to bowl during the day. I've got one league that I bowl at 9:30 in the morning. I like that. Another that I bowl at 1 o'clock. Last year I bowled at 7 o'clock in the evening. I really didn't like bowling in the evening. I don't like that as well, but there's lots of evening leagues as well. So check with your local bowling alley and see when the leagues are scheduled. And another way to get into bowling is not necessarily to get into a league right away, because leagues form usually in September, like I say, and they don't end till April or May. And sometimes there's summer leagues at bowling alleys, sometimes there's not. At our bowling alley, we have groups of people that get together and just bowl together in the summer, and it's fun. I mean, there's not a lot of competition or anything. It's no leagues involved, and so we just practice. But some bowling alleys do have leagues during the summer as well. But just get started. I mean, and the way to get started in it is, instead of just, if it's December and you want to, get into bowling, you can go there and say, hey, I would like to start bowling, and they will tell you, when the leagues are. They'll tell you if there's any senior leagues or not, and then you sign up to be a substitute. And as a substitute, you get your bowling paid for you, and it's a good way to start and get to know people in the league. And the next year, you're probably going to get on a team if you want to keep bowling. But substituting in a bowling league is great because it does not cost you anything, and because the regular bowler is the one that's having to pay your fee for you. When he misses, he's got to pay for a substitute, and so you get to bowl free, and that's great, and that's a good way to start bowling. If you're not sure you like the sport, you might go down and just substitute a couple of times and see how you like it, because I guarantee you'll like it. I mean, it's a good sport, it's a fun sport, and like I say, you meet lots of great people that you would not meet anyplace else. And so I encourage you to stay active. Like I say, next video, we're going to go to the bowling alley and actually video at the bowling alley. And so if you like this video, press the like button. If you want to subscribe, we would like to have you, and stay active. We all need to stay active as seniors. I'll see you next time. Bye.